Merrick Garland, something I didn't know about Merrick Garland. He was one of the investigators. He was a young Justice Department official back in 1995 when the white filth in this country attacked the Alfred Murrah Federal Building, the worst domestic terror attack in American history. You remember who did that? An Army veteran, if you can believe that, which I'm sure you can, Timothy McVeigh, whose brain had been rotted into lumps of dissolved ectoplasm from reading all the right-wing white supremacist bullshit, anti-Semitic bullshit. And Timothy McVeigh just lost his fucking mind and decided to kill 168 people, including the entire class of preschoolers who were in the nursery of the Alfred Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Son of a bitch. Every time I think about that arrogant, skinny white man, I get just, well, you know. But at the time, Merrick Garland was a young Justice Department official, and he led the investigation into that attack. I didn't know that. I don't remember hearing that during his, he didn't have a confirmation hearing, did he? Thanks to that filthy prick, the turtle, Mitch McConnell. But I digress. I'd say I can't get through a sentence without digressing into all these rat holes and avenues where these right-wing scum hide until it's time for them to come out with their goddamn AR-15s and Kalashnikovs acting like they're men. Anyway, Merrick Garland is now the Attorney General, and he commemorated the 26th anniversary of that bombing yesterday. And I liked the fact that he vowed to combat domestic terrorism, domestic extremism. He didn't even use the word terrorism, but extremism, which is a precursor to terrorism. It always is, especially in this country. Well, any place, really. But let me quote what he said. Quote, "Every year on the 19th of April, people gather here at this beautiful memorial to remember those who were killed, those who survived, and those who were changed forever. Those who do not know firsthand about the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building can understand and learn of the tragedy. We tell and retell the story to instill in them the commitment to prevent tragedies like this from occurring again. And this memorial is a monument to a community that will not allow hate and division to win. The Department of Justice is pouring its resources into stopping domestic violent extremists before they can attack, and prosecuting those who do, and battling the spread of the kind of hate that leads to tragedies like the one we mark today. We must all stand together against them for the safety of our communities and for the good of our country," end quote. Oy. So, time just rips by. It just seems like not that long ago that we all heard about what had happened in Oklahoma City. Garland added, quote, "Although many years have passed, the terror perpetrated by people like Timothy McVeigh is still with us." He added, "The Department of Justice is pouring its resources into stopping these extremists before they can attack." Now, his trip to Oklahoma City yesterday also included a visit to the memorial in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this is something that 99.999999% of us white people have no idea, no knowledge of. And that's the 1921 race riot in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that butchered as many as 300 black people and burned down more than 1,200 homes. And it was one of the worst acts of racial violence in American history. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Look it up. Come on, my white brothers and sisters. I mean, how in the hell are you and I ever going to be a positive force to end racism in this country unless we understand what it has done. I'm not talking about slaves in the field picking cotton. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about acts of extreme violence. Of course, that was violent, but acts of extreme violence that took the lives of dozens, scores, hundreds, thousands of people. I'm on my soapbox again, right? 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just do a search. Just do a Google search. That's all. In an interview with ABC News, Garland called the Tulsa riot, quote, the product of the same kind of hatred that led to the bombing in Oklahoma City, and both were brought by terrible hatred, end quote. Yeah. Now, Garland has made his public comments and his obvious commitment to stopping domestic terrorism, especially in the wake of the January 6th attack on the Capitol by these pro-Trump filth that included members of anti-government militias and other right-wing extremist groups, these filthy goddamn bastards. Man, see, I can't get a sentence out. I hate these people. I wish every one of them would fall down dead. Boy, is that a 5-year-old wish. I mean, the wish of a 5-year-old. But it's with so much dividing us, to have these scum, these filthy white scum, perpetrating this kind of violence, this kind of hatred, this kind of insurrection. God damn them. An intelligence report that was delivered to Congress last month warned that these white filth pose a rising threat because now the ones that are motivated by race are more likely to attack civilians. And members of these anti-government punk fuck militias are more likely to target law enforcement and government buildings and government employees. I mean, we're in a war, okay? Let's not fuck around here. We are in the initial phases of Civil War II, or call it whatever you want. But these people, here I go, these people need to be rounded up and stopped. I don't give a shit how. Put them in re-education camps. Let's do a North Korean number on these bastards. Put them in re-education camps. Let them know that their brains have been eaten alive by this racist filth. Or, you don't want to do that? Then charge them with treason and lock them up for the rest of their useless, putrid lives. What a way to live your life. I'm going to kill me some of them fuckers. What a putrid way to live your life. Now, the Justice Department, under Merrick Garland, its investigation into the January 6th attack is probably the Biden administration's most visible effort. Well, it is the most visible effort to combat domestic extremism. It's my understanding there are all sorts of investigations going on. I just hope they nail every one of these fuckers. I just, you have an issue with race relations, then let's sit down and talk about it. Let's parade down the street. Let's carry signs. But you rotten son of a bitches that pick up your guns and go kill people or lynch people or drag people behind a pickup truck or whatever evil shit you have cooking in your minds, God damn you. Anyway, the effort by the Justice Department gained some ground on Friday, if you remember, when this filthy hog, John Ryan Schaefer, who claims to be one of the founders of the Oath Keepers militia, was charged in connection with the assault on the Capitol. He pled guilty, agreed to cooperate with the government's efforts to bring charges against other scum who attacked the seat of our democracy. And it's going to be hard. I mentioned this the other day, because the scum who are involved in overthrowing the democracy, some of them are now members of the United States Congress. They ought to be thrown out. They ought to be fucking tarred and feathered. No, I'm serious. Take someone like Hawley or Ted Cruz or Marjorie Taylor Purple, whatever the fuck her name is, strip them down, cover them with tar, cover them with goose feathers, and ride them out of town on a rail. Jesus Christ. The nerve of these people, the filthy, traitorous nerve. Garland also told ABC News when he was talking about this stuff that, quote, "We do not yet have equal justice under law in America." That is quite a statement from the Attorney General of the United States. And can we keep in mind, please, is my understanding anyway, that the only reason the Justice Department was formed as a branch of the U.S. government was to protect people during Reconstruction, to protect black folk in the South. Because there was no way they could get justice from the local state governments, the defeated thugs and pigs and half-humans who led this revolt against the United States, and because they wanted to keep owning other people. So the original purpose of the Justice Department, the original configuration of the Justice Department, was to protect the recently emancipated people of color who had died by the millions in the Middle Passage once they got here. God damn. Anyway, Garland said that the role of the Justice Department, an important role of the Justice Department, is to help bring equal justice under law into reality. And I'll tell you something, the trial that has gone on in Minneapolis is now in the hands of the jury. At least it is as I'm recording this program on Tuesday afternoon. I haven't heard a verdict yet. But this verdict better come back the way you and I know it better come back. Or even the faint whiff of equal justice under law is going to disappear. I mean, this trial was so important because for one of the first times in the history of policing, police officers up to and including the chief of police of the city of Minneapolis testified against this goddamn murderer, Derek Chauvin. I say the first time because there's always been the blue wall. You've heard of the blue wall, where no matter the crime, cops would come together behind the perpetrator and refuse to admit that the son of a bitch was a criminal. Anyway, the comments from Garland were broadcast just a few hours after lawyers had their closing arguments in Chauvin's murder trial. Garland also added this, and bless his heart for doing it. I mean, not that you and I don't know this, because we do. But he said, quote, "Racism is an American problem. It's plain to me that there has been and remains discrimination against African Americans and other communities of color and other ethnic minorities. I think it's reflected in discrimination in housing and employment and the justice system. I vow to use every resource I have available to ensure that equal justice occurs," end quote. Good on you, mate. Can you imagine the previous two attorneys general saying anything even remotely like what Merrick Garland said? No, you can't. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.